we had a little bit of a talk before the recording, but I do want to say thank you again for coming here. I know you're very busy. You were sick as well, so I really appreciate that. It's kind of an honor to meet someone who's been in the modded space, well, Minecraft space, hosting space, for such a long time. I've been looking forward to being able to talk with you, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Been very excited for this since we first started talking. So really looking forward to it.
Cool. Maybe for the people who don't know, maybe introduce yourself. Like, who are you? What do you do?
Sure. So my name is Mitch Smith, and I'm the CEO and founder of Shockbyte. So we're a game server hosting company. We started about 12 years ago hosting just Minecraft servers. And yeah, since then we've gone on to, I think we're around 60 or so games now. Recently we've been building our own control panel and a completely new underlying platform that we're hoping to launch later this year to work directly with game studios as well. Personally, I've always been a gamer. I have been playing games as early as I can remember. I think some of the first games I played were like Spyro and Crash Bandicoot on PS1.
Awesome.
As I got a bit older, I got into MMOs like RuneScape and MapleStory. And then Minecraft came around, and a friend of mine had started a Minecraft server. So I just bought the game just so I could go play with him. And the same day I started my own server, and I just got really into server management. So I think that was 2011.
Yeah.
And through that, I was learning to make plugins. I ended up building Call of Duty Black Ops Zombies in Minecraft. And within a couple months, that server just completely exploded. We had so many players on it that, I had to get a lot of servers. This was even before Bungie COD. So
Oh boy.
we basically had to figure out how do we fit all these players in a server when you cannot even have a network. And the way we kind of did it back then was you would just have all of the servers, but they were really kind of separated. And sometimes you'd do like round robin DNS and all this weird stuff to try and balance the players. But yeah, that grew a lot, and we had all these servers, and eventually, because we already had the infrastructure and I was just really interested, we decided, well, it just kind of transitioned into Shockbyte. And yeah, that was 2013.
It's a big step. I mean, you say this is before Bungee Court. This is even before Pterodactyl was a thing. This is very early stuff, right? 2013. I think we just had Lost Bucket the year before. That was in 2012 or 2011. So this is very,
but yeah,
it's very early stuff. So it's I can relate to that hectic early beginnings. But then you grew into Shockbyte, so maybe you could explain how that. Well, you explained how it started. How did it evolve from going from this Call of Duty server that you need to manage with DNSs into an infrastructure that's now in however many countries and has so many customers?
Yeah. So first of all, I was very young when all this happened. I had no previous experience doing anything. So I think I was, I was 15 when I started Shockbyte, and we basically had the servers that we had for the server that I was running in Minecraft, but I was just doing it for fun at that point. I just really enjoyed everything, and I was still in high school, and basically went through the first 5 years just figuring things out, just having fun, building cool things. We did like even some in-game Minecraft events throughout the years. And at the time we were running on Multicraft, and WHMCS, which is the control panel and billing platform that pretty much everybody at least used to get started with until pterodactyls come around recently.
Yeah.
So first 5 years, it was kind of a thing I was doing on the side of school. Then I started studying computer science, but through Shockbyte, I'd pretty much learned everything I could have, and I wasn't really happy with what they were trying to teach. So I decided 2018 I dropped out of uni and decided to just fully focus on Shockbyte, and that's where things really started to change and grow. And I think the big shift there was we were still using Multicraft, and at the time we didn't really have anything that anyone else didn't have.
Mhm.
But something that we really excelled at was marketing, and I was learning just everything I could about marketing, SEO, um, email marketing, reading books and everything. And the really cool thing was having Shockbyte already been like 5 years in, we had a number of customers already. Learning the stuff and then applying it and seeing immediate results was super motivating. And it kind of just turned into this snowball effect where we really started scaling really fast. The team started growing a lot. And yeah, just with that, we basically, over the next few years, were um, became like in the top 5 hosts. And that was still in Multicraft. And we, as we scaled, there's been a lot of issues that we had with Multicraft. I don't think it was ever designed to support the scale we were at. So I know that Shockbyte, along with pretty much all of the other large providers at the time who were using Multicraft, had to rebuild a lot of it ourselves and all these systems to kind of support that scale. But we always knew that we wanted to replace that and build something um, from scratch. Not necessarily from scratch, but we found that that was going to be the best way to really build it the way we want to and keep it open for us to build in all of the functionality that we wanted.
Mhm.
Um, so we started working on that, and COVID came around 2020, I think. Of course, that was absolutely huge for gaming and huge for Shockbyte as well. So we were already on a massive growth path, but this just really accelerated things faster than anything before. And I think we were in a really good position in the market at that time. So I
Mhm.
think we were quite fortunate with that whole situation. Um, and that kind of leads us to the last couple of years where things have really been changing a lot. So that was kind of how we really scaled at the time. It was mostly all just multicraft and um, just the marketing we were doing. But yeah, we launched our new control panel in August last year, and a new website, and now Shockbyte, along with a few other companies in the industry, are kind of transitioning now to be something quite different, I would say. So
Mhm.
for the longest time, game server hosts have just been quite focused on player and game servers, but now we're really starting to see a shift towards just kind of game server hosting in general. So working directly with game studios and hosting games directly for game studios. And at the same time, we're also seeing game studios take note of launches like Palworld and Valheim and Minecraft, who went for the private server route.
Mhm.
And yeah, just game servers in general really seem to be growing a lot right now.
Yeah, you can also see that just in the last few years there has been a rise of numerous new ones, which in very short time, I think Shockbyte, Apex, and I want to say Bisect are like one of the older players in here. And then you had Lilypad now and Pebblehost coming in later in the years. Because Shockbyte, you say 2013, until now that's about a decade and plus 2 years. You know, that's a long time um, to be around. So there had to be some changes, I imagine, from going just for you personally. There had to be some changes you had to do, or grow into a manager role. Because I don't know, you say you finished high school while Shockbyte was growing, so I don't think you had much time to get experience in the managing role until you had to actually perform it, I imagine.
Yeah, I think that management was probably one of the most difficult things for me. And I think a big part of that was I never even had another job. So I never had any experience doing literally anything at all. I didn't know what it was like to have a manager. I didn't know what it looked like on a employment contract to be employed and what was normal. And especially in those first few years, I didn't really have anybody to ask or help with that. So um, I think management in general was something very difficult. I think initially the learning of that was really slow. One of the big challenges was when you really start to hire people and run out of time as the founder to be doing everything. Being able to not just delegate and train people on those tasks, but to kind of put the trust in them and be satisfied with the work that they do was quite a challenge for me. So I think at that point, the hard thing to overcome was just the understanding that not everybody no one you hire is going to do anything in the same way that you would do it.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to be comfortable and okay with that and actually realize that that's an incredible thing and really for the best.
Yeah, because are you a
Outside of
little?
that,
So sorry. Go on.
I was just gonna say outside of that, um, really it's been I've needed to read books whenever I have a problem in the company. I'm like, okay, I need to learn everything about this topic. I find books or courses or um, whatever I can to learn everything and then try and find a way to solve it.
Yeah, that also feeds into the question that I wanted to ask. Like, are you a little bit of a perfectionist, perhaps?
I've always been like a perfectionist,
Yeah.
but I think going through that transition of passing things on to others has kind of evolved the way I feel about that. And I think I've realized that done is better than perfect.
Yeah.
I think that's the quote.
Yeah. There's also just there's perfection and imperfection. You know what I mean? I on the 100% understand what you have. I'm a perfectionist myself at heart, so getting a deadline done is often important, more important than getting the deadline done good. You know, still do
Yep.
it good, obviously, but like better to deliver it than um. But yeah, that's because how old are you? If you don't mind me asking.
I'm 27 now.
20, dude, you're 2 years older. So you're 27. You're sitting on top of, I would call, one of the bigger hosts in not only Minecraft but gaming as a general. Because let's be honest, I think my eco servers were always on Shockbyte, and then I transitioned to self-hosting when I had the time. But you're a big name in a lot of games now, right? Um, but what was kind of the tipping point? The moment you realized because you mentioned transitioning from multicraft, which was not designed for all this stuff, to pterodactyl, which is now the industry standard. That is a changing point. But what was a tipping point for you that made you realize, like, oh, okay, I'm probably not gonna have to look for a job when I get off school?
That's a good question. I think so. Shockbyte was hmm. Shockbyte was always profitable from like the first month. It wasn't not like significantly profit. It was like we just broke even in the first month, which was amazing. So
That's awesome.
even during the first year, when we were kind of just advertising on like Minecraft forum, not really knowing where to find customers, and everything was quite new. We were able to grow to a point where I would have been able to support myself financially, even quite early on. So I think just like the not needing to get another job came quite quickly, but I think it was actually dropping out of uni and that first year of going Shockbyte full time that I really realized that this is actually something that can scale, and um, I should be spending my time here, and I can. Because I think just dropping out of uni is like a huge decision, and of course my parents were trying to convince me not to, but I just wasn't motivated doing that, and I was very motivated by Shockbyte. So um, I think that was it. I think the point at which I realized Shockbyte could be um, among the top and actually have a strong chance of becoming the number one provider was um, basically for several years early on in server hosting, MC Pro Hosting was always the number one provider that everybody knew.
Oh yeah.
They were just worked with all the biggest YouTubers. Everybody knew them. Even they were even more expensive than everyone, and still were the biggest server host. But we've never really kind of compared ourselves to others, but it was always like we'd see MC Pro Hosting. There was one point where they launched a new control panel website, and I thought, wow, these guys are, it's incredible what they're doing. No one else is doing this kind of stuff. But eventually, like, we were just doing our thing, and it came a time where we'd look at MC Pro Hosting, and they were kind of fading away, and people were talking about them less. And people were talking about Shockbyte more. And I think that's when I realized we're actually kind of, things are kind of shifting. And it's just something I never expected that we would really be able to achieve.
Yeah. I mean, must be a good feeling to finally achieve it, no?
Um, it does feel really good. I'm super proud of everything that we've been able to do. Especially our control panel that we launched. We've wanted to do this for years, but it's a lot of work to get it right. And I think you probably know this with development. Like, you work on something and then you're not happy with it, and you end up kind of wanting to rebuild it later. So we went through this a few times, and thankfully we did, because we also have some really awesome technology now that we just wouldn't have if we didn't build this from scratch. But yeah, it's great. We have an amazing team. It's just I just love the gaming industry in general. Everybody in the industry is so much fun. Everyone's kind of really aligned on just interest, because everybody's into gaming. So
Yeah.
it's really great.
I mean, is it going to be the norm for hosts to bring out their own panel? Because I'm not gonna bad talk your competitors because out of respect, but there are others that are sitting on very outdated panels, which I mentioned in one of my videos as well. Is it going to be the norm for everyone to start making their own panels because you have Motherint, which has its own backend and front end now? Um, do you see that? Do you see that evolving? That Pterodactyl is going to be relegated to the newer hosts, and then the older, more established ones get their own panel.
Definitely when Multicraft was the main panel, I think that was definitely the way. Pterodactyl, I haven't used it a lot myself, but it's it's a great panel. It's open source. You can build upon it, which yeah, it's a great starting place. And of
Oh
course,
yeah.
when we were building ours, we looked at Pterodactyl like, do we want to base off this? And it absolutely would have been a great decision and saved us a lot of time. So I would say that I don't think it's going to be the norm to build your own panel.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't really a financial driver for that now that Pterodactyl, there's no licensing fees
Yep.
for server hosts. I think it's really going to be if server hosts actually have a problem with Pterodactyl that they want to build some functionality and it just doesn't work. And that's kind of where we landed. Just one, I think, I'm pretty sure it uses PHP somewhere.
PHP.
And
Yep.
famously, everybody hates PHP.
Oh yeah.
So that probably caused a little bit of influence in our decision. But yeah, I think it's going to be like the companies that want to really change how it operates on like the underlying level are the ones that would want to actually build something like that, because it is a really big commitment to build any software. Not only do you need to build like the base features and just launch it, but continuous maintenance over time, security updates, and with Pterodactyl you do have the backing of all the contributors who are always working, and all the companies who are using Pterodactyl. Whenever we had been using Multicraft and all the hosts talk with each other, and when there's like a security issue, most hosts will be like, hey guys, just be aware that there's this issue going on, go check and make sure you update your panel. So I think generally the industry is quite good with that.
That's good. That's good that security is being taken this this it's good that there's such a big focus laid on security because you're handling people's data here, you're handling people's credit cards in some instances, or maybe you're using Stripe, which is a third party thing, but you're at least having billing data, which is also very important. It's good that that security is being taken in such a high point. The but yeah, security wise, Pterodactyl has had a few major flaws with because of the PHP. I think PHP is like the equivalent of doing chalk on a board, but it's like getting stuck. That's PHP in the programming world, in my opinion. So getting your own panel, which is written in what code, what language?
So it's basically mostly JavaScript.
Okay.
I think we use Go in some places. It's quite a modular system, so it's kind of built in several languages, but it's mostly JavaScript.
Awesome. I can already tell people are gonna scream, "No, you should have used Rust," but that's good. It's good that it's in a more modern language now. Um, but it's such a monumental achievement to get your own panel out because yes, Pterodactyl is awesome and has very modular systems. I've worked with it for years. I've been a volunteer help person in their Discord as well for a few years, 2 years I think. But having your own panel is always if you can maintain it is always a better choice. The thing is that Pterodactyl has enabled a lot of new people to start hosting, which is in some cases very good. It allowed people like Lilypad to grow this big. But there are also people who start this as a hobby and think like this is an easy way to get money. You've been in the game for, I want to say, 12 years now. Um, what are some of the things people don't really realize when they start hosting, whether it's small or big? What are some of the things you see a lot of people not getting about hosting?
Right. Firstly, I think it's just incredible that you can take Pterodactyl, put some servers behind it, and then you can start a business out of it. That's really how Shockbyte started with Multicraft. It's really the same thing, and we we just wouldn't exist today if we didn't have Multicraft 12 years ago when we got started. Um, I had tried to build panels myself even then, but um, I was 15. I didn't really. I, all the stuff that I ever kind of coded, even for Shockbyte, is now getting redeveloped by people who are like way better than I could have ever done. So, um, yeah, I think the difference of when you like kind of start a server host running on Pterodactyl and kind of continue to scale and grow the company, things really change a lot in how the company operates. Um, so, are you familiar with like the great filters of like civilization, where
Yeah, I am. Yes.
as civiliz so as civilizations develop, they hit these barriers of evolution, basically, where if they don't make it through, they basically go extinct.
Yeah.
So I think one of those right now is we're developing all this technology. We've got nuclear weapons, and if something goes wrong, we could just, um, not make it through, and we could go extinct.
Yeah.
The same thing happens with companies, right? So anyone can buy machines, get pterodactyl, and enter a small market niche and get customers. But then as the business grows and you get too large for the founder to be able to do everything
Mhm.
on their own, then you need to start hiring people, and that's where things really kind of um, get rocky. Every time you go through one of these filters, it's quite rough because it's a transition for the business. So when you bring more people on, they need to be trained to do things as well as the founder would have done.
Yeah.
And that's a very difficult thing. It took us years, really, to kind of figure out how to do that effectively. Um, and it kind of goes back to all the things I was saying before about trusting them and figuring out how do you train and how do you manage and lead people. And it's something I'm continuing to learn. It's tough. Then you continue to grow and you need to start bringing in legal and finance and HR and actually all these things that actually make it a business, making sure you're compliant with all the regulations. Um, Even internally, if you're adding more games, just beyond like Minecraft, we added Rust and Ark first, and then it took us, I think, over a year before we added a fourth game.
Yeah.
And scaling up the games is difficult because you need to have continuous maintenance for them. Every game gets updated on a different schedule. All of them get bugs, and if you're like Shockbyte and you've got 60 plus games, you need to know when those bugs happen so you can get the updates live and fix it.
Yeah.
Um, and then if you want to do something like build your own control panel, again, most, especially like big software like that takes a long time to develop, um, you really need to be able to do that right from the beginning, because what always happens with software is you you build something and then you wish you did it differently, and sometimes you even need to go back and start over. I think we started over like 3 or 4 times.
Yeesh.
But eventually, if you get something right and you make it through, then yeah, you've got that. Another one is like if you're going internationally. So we went through a process where we needed to start employing people overseas, and that means registering locally, figuring out the local employment laws, paying taxes locally, working with different time zones, being able to support customers in different languages. And I think probably most companies are always going through some filter. For
Mhm.
us, we are going through one right now, which is again quite a transition for the company, but one that will allow us to really change the way we operate. So we're working on a new platform now that will allow us to enter B2B market as well and work directly with game
Oh, that's
studios.
cool. Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's we built this on the same platform that we use for Shockbyte, and
Mhm.
that was one of the big drivers for why we built our own control panel too, because we wouldn't have been able to do this if we had taken Pterodactyl. Um, Pterodactyl's really built for private servers, but we want to be able to host any type of game server. So, but yeah, that again is it's a transition and building kind of a new business unit that manages that, and in a very different market too. It's quite a change. But
But yeah.
I would say this is like the thing that is different between companies as they grow. Like every time you go through one of these filters, it really changes the way the company operates, and that's why you see um, smaller hosts. Um, the founder is gonna always be the most passionate
Mhm.
and motivated person in the company, most likely, and I think it's fantastic for people in like the admin craft community where they can work directly with these founders who are also passionate about server hosting. Um, and yeah, I guess that hopefully that answers some of the question.
I will say for people who are watching, there is a little bit of a delay here, so I'm gonna also apologize if I interrupt you at some points. That's not the intention. Um, yeah. So the new, I think the most important time for a human will always, well, the most valuable thing in a human's life is time. When you're managing a large company, that becomes doubly so because you're not only spending time more at work, but you're also just your time is more valuable. Uh, and when you run out, you need to spend money to buy time. Essentially, that's how I look at those things. But you started with Minecraft, right? You evolved to other games. You mentioned that it took you a year for the fourth game to get back in. How difficult is it to host games like Eco or Valheim or Palworld, for instance, in in comparison to Minecraft, for example? What are some of the challenges that you have on that field?
Um, so yeah, so Minecraft is like Java edition, especially. You just run the executable with Java, and it's running, and it's like I think it's the easiest game that
Yeah.
we host. Um, every other game, everything is slightly different. They all have different dependencies. They all have different, um, some don't support Linux and some have to run on Windows. Um, I think the thing with taking Rust and Arc for example, I did implement those ones myself at Shockbyte originally,
Hmm.
and to do that, it was maintaining an entire separate code base for each game that we wanted to run. So
That's
we
nuts.
had to really, um, well, of course, we build the Docker images, but then kind of building the system around it that will run those games. We were using Multicraft at the time, by the way.
Mm.
So um, Multicraft was not built for games outside of Minecraft.
Oh no.
That was probably why things were a little bit hacky and like that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was building a code base and making sure that the right well, all the functionality still works, like being able to detect when players are online the server. Some games will use Archon for sending commands, which is not exactly the same as Minecraft, where you just use the direct server process. Um, yeah, everything's just slightly different, and I think the difficulty comes just with the scale of them and having to keep track of all of those small differences just at a massive scale. In terms of actually implementing games, probably the more difficult one is where they don't support Linux, and we currently don't run any Windows machines.
Hmm.
We can, but uh, running running games on Linux, usually you'll run them through Wine or something similar, and that can sometimes come with bugs, which can take a little bit to sort out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's really it.
I mean, yeah. Yeah, like you mentioned, Minecraft is very, very easy to get started. It's just an executable, make a file, or even with Pterodactyl, because in Pterodactyl they're called eggs. I think the egg for Minecraft is one of the more basic ones. When you look at the eco one, it's insanely complicated. Um, but yeah, yeah. I mean, Windows is also just a hassle to work with, right? Windows Server,
Yeah.
I've, because I don't know if you, well, you don't run Windows machines, but maybe others in the industry, if they run Windows Server, or do they would just run Windows Enterprise or something?
Yeah, I'm not super familiar, but one of the issues is when you start introducing Windows as well, is you're kind of introducing a whole new um, attack vector as well, and it's a bit of a security issue when you start mixing um, all of this together. It's a lot more to start being really careful with, and um, anytime you're introducing something new like that, you need to be very cautious.
Yeah.
And we just when you can run through Wine, um, there just hasn't been a strong need for us to actually support native Windows.
Hmm.
But something we did do internally was like to kind of help with all of this complexity was we built a system that we call Game Version Manager, which is GVM for short. This it's like a web interface where you can configure games and dependencies all just through clicking and picking config options. And basically, every time we've kind of added support for games, we build it in this modular way where you can just, um, yeah, just configure it without having to write code anymore like we used to.
That's kind of awesome. But we have now seen Steam come out with Proton. Is that like in any way useful to the hosting scene, or is that purely like end user material?
Personally, I'm not super familiar with Proton. I'm not too sure what that is.
It's the Steam Deck compatibility layer. So when you use a Steam Deck, it uses Proton, or I'm misremembering the name, but it's this layer. It's like Wine essentially, but it's for from Steam itself, and that's where the Steam Deck runs on.
I see. Yeah, I'm not too sure really.
because that has made a lot of games like playable on Windows machines, or has made Windows games playable on Linux. It's the other way around. It's not like, yeah, you see, you know what I mean.
Right.
It's
Yeah, I'm sure
it's
our team knows about this.
yeah.
There's a few different ones. I think a lot of them are built kind of upon wine.
Mhm.
So it looks like actually Proton maybe as well. So I think we do use kind of a variation of things like that.
No, that's awesome. But yeah, I just wanted to know if maybe Proton was on a better for that kind of stuff. Uh, but you mentioned Admincraft a little while ago. Because I am currently on the drive to get as many people certified as I can. Are you already certified with Admincraft?
I don't know that they did certifications, so
Okay.
I'm gonna take a look at that.
Yeah, it's basically it's one of the videos I did, like, where you can make a lag-free server. Um, it's a certification that they do where they have certain people. Lev is one of the council members over there, by the way.
Yes.
They basically do a Nyon probe test and see, like, is the security up to par? What are they doing? Do they have in terms of servers? Are they not doing any shady stuff? That kind of stuff. And it's this kind of certification that they're pushing to weed out some of the more nefarious actors in the hosting scene. It's really cool. Which I am also pushing for everyone that I talk to in the hosting scene. Ultra Servers, for example, has also gone through the service, and many others. So the more big players do it, the better we are, I guess.
Awesome. I'm definitely gonna take a look. Could you maybe send me a link
Yeah,
afterwards
I
so I can
shall
read
send
about
you a
it?
link. Yep. All right.
Thanks.
No worries. The other thing that I want to ask is, like, you mentioned that it was tough to get into. Well, tough. It was definitely a learning experience for you to get into a managerial role, as like accepting the fact that others will do work slightly differently than you. Like, that's a big factor. I can speak from experience. I know what that's like. Not on your scale, obviously, but I can get what you're feeling on that front. But maybe there's some other learning opportunities that you needed to learn as like a person, not like Mitch the CEO, but Mitch the person. What kind of things did you need to learn, or real of what kind of things did you realize as you went through about having a big company and running it?
I think probably a big thing that has just, I guess, been a challenge personally and something that I've kind of had to work on myself a bit with has been that I've always just been an introvert and not super social. And now, I mean, leading a company, I need to talk to people every day. Most of my time now is spent talking to people, which is like the complete opposite of what I'm just naturally used to.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess learning to be more social and learning to kind of communicate um, with the team um, in a way that I can hopefully be somewhat inspiring, but also clear in what we're trying to achieve. Um, but yeah, also just socially in general. I think one of the changes that has happened in the last few years as well is we've kind of become a bit more publicly facing as well. So
Mm-hmm.
we're attending a lot of gaming events now, like GDC and Gamescom. And GDC, I did a like a presentation, speech for like just on player-owned game servers, and I never really had experience with that kind of thing before. It's not naturally something that kind of comes to me, but yeah, it was like the first time I'd ever done a speech like this. It was 60 minutes in length.
Oh
Um,
boy.
Weirdly, just because that was the only slot that they had available for me to fit into
Yeah.
60 minutes. So That was scary, but I think just things like public speaking and stuff has really been a big personal change that I've had to kind of go through and develop on.
I can tell you right now that there's a lot of people in this industry, even in the modding space, that are introverted. Um, you're not the worst one I've interviewed yet, so you're doing great, buddy. uh,
Thank you.
no worries. But maybe for the opposite, like you had to learn some stuff, but maybe there's some stuff that you look back upon and say to yourself, I'm really glad that I did that, or I'm really proud of that, or the team even, because you mentioned you were proud of the team. Maybe there's something monumental aside from the panel, of course, because that's an easy answer, that you look back upon and say with like a lot of pride in yourself, like this is something that we are really glad, or I am really glad that happened.
I think probably that um, real highlight that I think about is when we've always been a remote company. I started the company in my bedroom. We've kind of eventually got a few offices, but not all of our team is working there. We're still mostly remote, and um, that kind of means a lot of the team don't always get to meet each other if they live far away. So when we had our 10th anniversary, we had everybody fly to London. We organized this. I think it was over the weekend. We organized an event just for everybody to meet, hang out, spend a lot of time together, and it was. I think it was the first time that most people in the company had actually met each other and spent time with each other, and we kind of did it because we wanted to celebrate. Like we'd been 10 years old, and we felt like, okay, we've done a lot. Let's just take a moment to celebrate. And that experience was like, I would say it has really been like transformational. The time that we spent there, it was like everybody had known each other for so long, everybody clicked so well. I don't think we realized how close the team was and got along and how well we just clicked with each other. And since then, it's really kind of, it's always something that we've been like, wow, awesome that we did that. But it's also transitioned how we've just been working as a company in general. And now we're always traveling and meeting each other. We started to build these office hubs in a few of the countries that most of our team are in, and we now do more of this travel and actually meet the people that you work with. So for me, that's been the coolest change. Actually getting to be with the people that I talk to every day. So it's been great.
That's really sweet, because I know that on your About Us page, or one of the pages, it is actually the picture, I believe, that you were all in London, the group picture, which I already thought was pretty sweet. And I know there's an office in Amsterdam, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, in the Netherlands, in Eindhoven.
Eindhoven, yeah, okay. Because one of your employees was like, "Hey, you made this mistake," and I was like, "Oops, hope Mitch didn't see that." But yeah, that's actually really sweet that you had this coming together, and that actually positively influenced the company to be more interconnected, I would say. Um, well, you spend about 12 years now in the industry. What is your vision for the next 10 years? Not only Shockbyte, but just the hosting scene in general. You mentioned them working more closely with game developers itself, but how do you see the hosting scene evolving in the next 10 years?
So I think a lot is changing right now, and that is that server hosts are working directly with game studios now. A big part of that is private servers. So most of the games that we see launching now also launch with a number of server hosting partners. Alongside that, I think a lot of the game server hosts that have started in the private server space are now a lot of them are getting investment, and they're kind of really changing how they operate and the markets that they operate in.
Mm-hmm.
So what is kind of happening with all of the largest game server hosts in private servers right now, they're all starting to move into a more B2B space and working directly with game studios. And we're launching our new platform for that soon. But we're not the only one. There's been at least 2 others who've done this already.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that there's more also kind of thinking about that. And in fact, there's even another. I think what's happening is these companies get investment, then they look at what else can they do. Also, just to be clear, Shockbyte hasn't taken any investment, and also we don't have plans to take any investment. But yeah, I think from the server hosting side, that's the shift that's happening. But also when I've been at events like GDC and Gamescom, just over the last 3 years, it has completely changed from every game developer I talk to is like, what's a private server? I don't know much about player-owned game servers, to now everybody is talking about it. And there is so many games in this space in development now. And we're going to see a lot more launches in the coming years. So I think that's super exciting. I think the private server games, they have the closest communities, and that's one of the real strengths and highlights and the most enjoyable things about these games, I think. So I think it's going to be just awesome for gaming in general in the next few years with this.
Yeah, I believe that private servers are just a net positive for everyone involved. The creator doesn't need to pay for hosting services, and the hosting service providers can get a pretty buck, and then even players can host it themselves if they prefer, right? It's good to see it shift towards more private servers being released, and it's definitely exciting to see where all this will lead. But that's basically all my questions that I have for you. I don't know if you have anything you want to directly say to either people watching or in general before I hit this stop recording button.
First of all, just thank you for inviting me to have this interview with you. I've really been looking forward to meeting you. Thank you. And yeah, our team's been watching your channel for 3 or 4 months now, since you really started making a lot more of these videos on server hosts. There's one where you ranked Shockbyte first, and then Modrinth came in, and we've been keeping a close eye on everything since then. So yeah, just thank you. We're also just looking forward to seeing more from your channel, and thanks to everybody who's sat through all of this. And yeah,
It's that fills me with joy, I will say, because I mostly don't know what I'm doing.